Okay.
So
what do you want to do? A micro on Tiffany?
Maybe that'll work. Maybe we label it as a micro reboot. Yeah, okay, I can live with that.
Sword of omens, give me sight beyond sight.
Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Sewer and the Kodan Armada. Get ready. Prepare for blast-off.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Remember, no matter where you go, there you are.
This is 80's Reboot Overdrive podcast.
We were dancing just like Swayze when Jennifer Grey had nose. Oh, how I miss the 80s, but I'm too young to really know. Too young to know.
Oh my god. That is like so dated.
Alright, so this is Dave, and this is an 80s micro reboot overdrive. This is recorded on, what were we at? August 28th, 2016. Unlike other micro reboots, I actually have a co-host on this one. This is 80s Outer Reverse Scott.
Hi, everybody.
Now, I'm bringing Scott along for the ride here because we had a previous conversation around something that I just really wanted to kind of... I'm bordering calling it a Davitorial. And I had the opportunity. I went to the DeKalb Corn Fest last night, and Tiffany was playing, her... I don't know what to say. Is it her discography, her everything that she's done throughout the years,
Mm-hmm.
and along with the stuff that she did in the 80s, which made her famous. And so she's at a corn fest, and she's got a pretty good crowd about her, and she, I've got to tell you, is a wonderful vocalist. I don't know if anybody remembers that or not, but we remember the Mall of America tour and her I Think We're Alone Now, and the hits that she had in the 80s, but I don't know if anybody realized what a great vocalist she is. Did you know that about her?
I don't remember it being a standout performance for me.
Okay.
But that it's been a long time since I've heard any of her stuff too, so it's if I went back and listened to it, I'm sure I would listen to the actual vocals more than the pop songs that were.
Yeah, they were very poppy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts on Tiffany back then? Or
Well,
did you have thoughts?
Oh, I thought she was cute. I'm always a sucker for a redhead, so I was a teenager, and she was attractive young woman.
Okay.
Let's see, when she was born in '71, so she's younger than me. Good Lord.
Yeah, actually by 1 year, me too.
Yeah, a few years for me. I was 68, so.
Yeah, so I guess there was the rivalry there, or I don't think there was a rivalry, but there was a thing with Debbie Gibson / Tiffany. If you had to pick one, which one was which camp were you in?
Well, I think I'd lean towards Tiffany, actually.
I was that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about her.
Yeah.
I think Debbie Gibson seemed more bubblegum.
That's interesting. More bubblegum. Okay.
Do you know what I mean? The bubblegum was a term in the music industry that have you never heard of that one? Never heard of bubblegum?
Just based on the way that you say it, I have a thought process as to what it means, but I've never really heard it referred to. But what I'm guessing is it's just, as we were saying, poppy.
Yeah. Okay. Like what I would say, bubblegum would also include like in the 90s, like Britney Spears.
Okay.
Okay. In her early stages. Now, she got a little more risque as time went on, but I don't know if it would be bubblegum. I don't know if that would fall into bubblegum, but I think the Brady Bunch.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. And then when they tried to sell Johnny Bravo, it was about the image, it wasn't about the talent.
Yes. Okay.
I think from what I recall, in my mind, I believed that Tiffany was more talented than Debbie.
So you were like, think of like boy bands.
Oh,
that
no.
would be bubblegum.
Do you have to?
No, I'm just saying, but that would be more bubblegum, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so to go with your description, maybe, there's vocal talent that might be there, but it's not like they're spending a lot of time and learning all the instruments and really honing that talent, other than maybe dancing in line with each other.
Right.
Okay. All right. I see what you're getting by bubblegum.
Yeah, I guess I try to break it down nowadays. I look back at some of these artists that made it popular, or made it in the 80s. They made it to a certain point where they were very popular, and I think about how they would have done on American Idol, and I think a lot of them would have failed miserably. Would have never gotten very far, and something about Tiffany seemed like she had more of a certain charisma to her. So I'm not going to say anything to her vocals because I can't recall, and I'd have to go back and listen to them. She was cute and, presented herself well. So overall, yeah, I think she might have made it through quite a few, what do you call them, episodes of American Idol.
Yeah, I could see her doing that. So did you catch her in? Did you catch? You obviously didn't catch her any concerts or anything like that. So you weren't. That wasn't your realm because you were more hard rock.
Yeah, no, I did not catch her in any of that stuff. I was definitely hard rock.
You're probably going to get thrown out of the club for even talking about this one.
Well, I think the furthest outside of metal, as far as concerts go or seeing people live, was probably Oingo Boingo, and that's not really. They kind of have their own sound, really.
Right.
But outside of that, I never really saw anybody else other than heavy metal bands.
Okay. All right. So in the 80s, that wasn't your. It's like you didn't have those albums then.
No.
So,
no, I didn't even.
At least nothing you're going to admit to.
I didn't even have Madonna, and she was far more popular.
Right. Which
I hate that term, but it's the truth. That's what it is, I guess. Popular. She was more successsul, we'll say.
Right.
In the 80s, and I didn't get it. So yeah, I would not have if I had been offered tickets to go see Madonna, I don't think I would have gone. So
wow, I think there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be upset with you on the.
Go ahead, that's okay. Everybody has their own taste, and I didn't see. I thought she was a marketing genius.
Right.
But as far as raw talent goes, I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
All right, so I started this podcast, because I wanted to talk about my experience last night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened? What happened at this show?
So
talk to me about this.
So you're familiar with her biggest hit, right?
I think we're alone now.
There you go. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm standing there, I'm watching her perform, and she's a storyteller. She's a great storyteller. And she, in between each song, she's giving a bit of history around, you know, I guess the evolution of her career, you know, post 80's. And she's obviously done quite a bit. And I haven't followed what she's done. You know, because from the late 80's, you know, that was kind of where I checked out from following her. And it's not because she wasn't talented. It's just that wasn't where I was, where I needed, you know, that kind of musical influence. But listening to her perform last night and listening to her stories, I became very impressed with what she's accomplished. You know, and she's continued to tour the world, and become a songwriter and an extremely, extremely great vocalist. I mean, she is fantastic. And you know, there was, and I wish I could. I wrote down the song. I didn't write down the song or the album that it was off of, but there was a couple, 2 or 3 that she's done since the 80's, that have been kind of her journey throughout her career, and a lot of it being, you know, what she's done as far as being a songwriter, which hasn't been commercially successful. But she's still out there plugging away and doing what she likes. She's writing and performing, and she's touring the world, and she's sharing that this is what she has been doing. And I was enthralled by that. I actually was, taken in, and I'm like, I tweeted to her, and I'm like, I'd love to talk to you more, because she's a great storyteller, and, just immensely talented. And in between all of that, I have the guy behind me at the festival, and all he wants to hear is one specific song, which you just named. So regardless of what she's going to talk about, regardless of what else she was performing from her subsequent albums, which are all great, based on what I've heard, from the limited exposure that I had to them, he wasn't interested in all that. It was, I think we're alone now. That's all I want to hear. And regardless of her, the way that she was setting up and talking about her life, he didn't want to hear any of it. And I feel like I failed as a person. And here's the reason why I feel that way. Is because where there's that TV show that's out there that says, what would you do? You heard about that one?
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, and it was one of those situations where I was close to turning around and saying to the guy, listen, if you've ever listened to a podcast, I want you to listen to one called 80's Reboot Overdrive, because I'm going to be talking about you.
Here's your 15 minutes of fame, buddy.
Yes, because this is how I'm annoyed by you. and so, I don't know your name, sir. I didn't get it. I didn't even, give you the time of day. But I wish I would have. I wish I would have turned around and said, I need you to listen to this podcast, because you're missing out on, what she's, the stories that she's telling us, that her what she's given as her livelihood. Because I think that if she would have just gotten up there on that stage and performed I Think We're Alone Now, just the one song, and left, he would have been perfectly happy. And the good news is, when she was performing it, he was into it. He was dancing and recording with his, iPhone, the video of it, which subsequently I did too. But, it was, at least he was into that one song. But what I hated was how much he was not even giving her the chance. I mean, and her being as talented as she was, she deserves better than that. And that's why, and that's my Davitorial. So I think that, if we were to revisit, people that are our icons and they've done subsequent work, be it music, be it, movies, TV shows, or whatever, you've got to respect the craft. You've got to respect what they're putting into it.
Now, would you put him into the category as a heckler?
No, he wasn't saying it loud enough so that she was hearing it. It was just loud enough for, the people that were in the vicinity.
Right.
And it was more for the people, the guy that was next to him, the guy that was with him. And he was just one of those guys that just wouldn't shut up.
Yeah, I have a similar story, and it was an 80's band, Loverboy.
Okay.
Went and saw them at, you're familiar with the Brat Stop up in, what town is that in? Just north of the border there.
I'm not, but go ahead with your story.
It's in, oh man, it's right over the Illinois border into Wisconsin. I cannot remember the name of the town. Anyway, it's the Brat Stop. A lot of people know of it. A lot of these bands that are going back on their, kind of reunion tours, I guess you call them, smaller venues, Well, we went and saw Loverboy, and it was a great show. And man, I still got to give it to Mike Reno. He can really belt it out. Unbelievable voice, very underrated. But there's this one guy in the audience, like, sitting back far enough where they couldn't hear him. They had no clue he was saying anything. But the people immediately around him, he's kind of heckling the band, making fun of him. Like, dude, if you're going to be here making fun of him, why are you here at all? Why are you? If you're going to be trying to heckle, it's Loverboy. You know why they're here, and he obviously looked the age of being part of that era. So why would you come here and just to make fun of him? I don't get it. So I understand having that one person over your shoulder and you just want to turn around and say, look, man, just enjoy the show. Shut up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And did you say anything?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
no, that guy was,
you're like
well, for one, the guy was loaded.
Okay.
And you can never trust a loaded gun.
Yeah.
You never know which direction that's going to go, and,
Yeah, you didn't want that to go the wrong way, and all of a sudden, rather than watching a concert, you're, having to fill out police reports or something. Exactly.
I'm out on the, I'm outside dealing with other stuff and not being able to enjoy the show of Loverboy, which I still I love them back then. I liked a lot of their songs, and they put on a heck of a good show.
Yeah,
30 later.
Yeah, and as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, I know I've heard Jesse tell the story about how people are going to Bruce Springsteen and talking about how they just want to hear, like, Born in the USA.
Yeah, I've heard Jesse mention this before, too.
Right, so, I mean, it's in that same vein, right? I mean, you've got to let, you've got to respect the rest of the catalog, of what that artist has brought to the table. Yeah, which it's shocking that Bruce Springsteen would have that type of fan where they just want to hear one song. I mean, look at the catalog that dude has. Right. For crying out loud, he's been, he's had hit after hit after hit after hit for decades. Right. And you just want to hear Born in the USA. You're seriously missing out on a lot of good stuff. I mean, I feel like I missed out on a lot of, Bruce's stuff until I started listening to it a little bit more about 10 years ago, and then Jesse really opened my eyes to some of his other stuff that I had not had a chance to look at. So I understand. And that's how after listening to what Tiffany was talking about and hearing her perform, actually it felt bad that I didn't know her subsequent work. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, she's fantastic. And, it wasn't like a huge band setup. It was a keyboardist, a guitarist, and a backup singer. And that was it. And the rest of it was just Tiffany doing her thing. And she was great. She was absolutely fantastic. So that's what I feel bad about, because, I mean, I feel bad that I haven't followed and realized what a great talent she is, post 80's, other than what she'd given us in the 80's. But then again, as I think about it, then I realize that, my taste in music genre just changed. So,
oh, wow.
So it wasn't really anything that she had done. It was just kind of how I had evolved, into what I needed from music.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about kind of that experience and how I feel that people that go to these things where they may just want that nostalgic moment, they've got to, just sit back and enjoy the show, as you put it. And I feel that didn't happen, for this one guy, and it annoyed me. And I've got a microphone and I can talk about
it. You have a platform, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah. So sometimes I think people just need to just shut up and enjoy the show.
Right.
I agree. I'm on board with that.
All right, so that's our message listener for this micro reboot. Is just enjoy the show, and hopefully ours.
Yeah. Yep.
So with that, Scott, what are your social media credentials?
You can find me on Twitter at 80's Auto Reverse and at Scott's Eye, and on Facebook at the page of 80's Mixtape Auto Reverse.
Awesome. And I am Dave. Take care of our 80's Reboot accounts. So that's 80sreboot.tumblr.com, Facebook.com/80's Reboot. On Twitter, we're at 80's Reboot. Gmail our email is 80sreboot@gmail.com. And of course, we want you to go out there and give us a rating review on iTunes. So please go out there and do that. And thank you for listening to this short 80's micro reboot, where we got to tell you to shut up and enjoy the show. So with that, thank you for reliving the 80's, and have a good night. Bye.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
As usual.
Yes.
Always is.
Sweet.
All right, later.
Bye. We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80's Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80's Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80's Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80's.